Hi there, boys and girls. We have a typical problem here. It's a containment problem. Blue, it's double match point, by the way. So gammas don't matter. All blue wants to do is build a prime, bring his checkers home, uh, close out the board, and win the game, and make your opponent cry. That's your goal, is to make your opponent cry. We're all going to be sadistic, or you wouldn't want to play backgammon. That's why my wife doesn't enjoy playing backgammon in a tournament. She loves the game, but in tournaments where it's so important and she rolls really well, she feels such empathy for her opponent. That poor person over there has to lose because of her, and she's causing pain in the world. So obviously she shouldn't be competing. She'll play doubles with me because she at least gets the pleasure of seeing me have such joy when I cause them such pain. So that's the goal. How are you going to cause the most pain to red here? Your goal is to make the 9-point. That's the safest one to make. It would be nice also to make the 3-point, but making them from the back is safer and easier than trying to make them from the front. And by bringing builders on top of these points to make it from the front, you also run the risk of your opponent rolling a 2-6 and popping out, and you'll have fewer checkers out here to hit. So make the 9-point first, then worry about snaking it home. It's called a snake, where you take a prime and you gradually, I think it's more like a caterpillar, but gradually move it forward. So here really the question is, are you going to keep the checkers spread out, or are you going to slot the back of the prime by putting a checker on the 9-point? Well, there's an obvious downside of putting a checker on the 9-point. If your opponent rolls a 2-6, it's curtains. You're almost always going to lose. And if you don't, you've got multiple numbers to hit, and you're probably in good shape. However, that's the scenario where red rolls a 2-6. When red doesn't roll a 2-6, having slotted the back of the prime, your odds of making it are huge. So the answer is, in most cases, you do slot the back of a 5 prime. Don't worry about the fact that the number isn't real big here to do it. Learn the concept and stick with it. Falafel said in one of my lectures a couple of years ago, when somebody was saying, the difference isn't that big, let's go on. Falafel said, oh no, the concept is incredibly important. Even though the difference may not be that big here, you need to understand the concepts and the reasons behind it, because it could be big, and even if it isn't that big, you make a whole bunch of small errors, and before you know it, you're giving away 20% of your winning chances. The concept is correct, that you generally want to slot the back of the prime. The reward is very, very great if you get away with it, and the risk is also horrible if you don't. But what are the odds? 2 out of 36 is only about 5.5% of the time that you get hit, and you're going to make it most of the time. Now, what if you had a 4 prime? Generally speaking, you don't slot the back of a 4 prime, because it's not just a 1-6 here that hits you, it's also a 2-5, and you can try to make it naturally, and there are just more numbers where he comes out and you want to be able to hit it, and you get hit too much. So generally speaking, do not slot the back of 4 primes, and you do slot the back of 5 primes. It's a simple, pretty simple thing to remember, and generally right. There is no always right in backgammon, except always try to win. I guess that's the only always. It's always right to try to win, and it's always right to use your noodle. I like to say, don't go with necessarily your gut reaction. You should be thinking from a much higher part of the body, much higher up than your gut, which is above the neck, and you can figure out what I mean. Now, he's at the edge of the prime, and now let's say you have the same 5-1 to play. What's your play? Do you slot the back of the 4 prime? Do you hit loose? You do have those two options. Or you can just keep checkers spread out. Do you make this point with the 1? Usually making points, even though, for example, if you make this point, then you won't get hit with a 6-3 and you stop a 6-3. Well, again, this is risk-reward. I would rather get hit with a 6-3 and have them spread out for a 6-1 and a 6-2, which is twice as often, and take my chances. So keep them spread out if you don't slot the back of the prime. Slotting the back of the prime is just is very risky. It has its rewards, but if he rolls a 6, you're in big trouble whether you slot the back of the prime or not. And again, what are the odds here? Most common variation is that red doesn't roll a 6. 70% of the time, roughly, red doesn't roll a 6. And when red doesn't roll a 6, you'd like to be in a good position to hit him off the edge of the prime. That's always, if you can keep the prime and hit him off the edge of the prime, even with a very risky situation on this side, you usually have to do it on the next roll. So you don't slot the back of the prime in this case, but in many cases you might have to. It isn't that ridiculous to think about slotting the back of the prime. Let's roll this game forward. Let's say you make the right play according to XG, and I have pretty good reason to believe at XG++ it's the right play. And let's find out what happens on your next roll if you have a chance to. Let's give red a great roll other than a 6. He makes it. He closes his board, and now you roll a 4-1. Let's give you a 4-1. You can slot the back of the prime. You can keep it spread out outside, or you can hit loose off the edge of the prime and hope you don't get hit back. What do you think is right here? Well, we set up for hitting loose at the edge of the prime. If you get hit, you're in pretty bad shape and it looks pretty bad, doesn't it? But it's not as bad as you think. First of all, you should hit, and let me show you that it's right. Because if you don't hit any 6 and you're dead, look, all the top plays are hitting. Not hitting is an 11% blunder. So you hit, and you hope he doesn't roll a 3, and afterwards you hope you roll a 2, or you roll a 9, or a 10, and cover. And if you don't, you hope he doesn't roll a 2 next time, or whatever it is that he needs to hit you next time. But let's say the worst happens. The very worst thing happens and he hits you. He rolls a 3. Well, 3 what? What's happening over here? Unless it's a 3-1, it's 3 and a crash, and you're on the bar and shooting. And so it is easier when you can see that your opponent is crashing. Let's make the opponent not so crashable. Let's give your opponent something where now when you hit him loose off the edge of the prime and he hits you back, he's not generally crashing. It's still right to hit. You can't let this checker sit here and wait for a 6. You're better off getting hit and taking your chances that red doesn't roll a 6 in the next 1 or 2 rolls and then crashes. That's if you get hit. Keep in mind, you don't always get hit. You might even go to the 2 point after hitting here. I hate those plays, but it seems to be, it's right here. Why do you go to the 2 point? If he rolls a 3, he's not at the edge of the prime. If he hits you off the 2, you have a much better chance that he's going to crash his board before he rolls a 1 and a 6. Now, if you had more builders, maybe just one more builder would be enough for me to hit and not go to the 2 and try and make the 3 point on the next roll. I think that might change it. I think if I rolled a 4 or 1 now, I would stay here because I have more chances to make it. It still might be right to go to the 2, though, because if he rolls a 3, which is the scary roll, he hasn't come out. So these are close, but I think I'm staying here with the 4. And I'm prepared to be wrong. This could be wrong. It might be right to go to the 2. I'm learning with you. Isn't this fun when we can learn together? Yeah, it's still right to go on to the 2, but only by a little bit. One more builder. And now we're going to make that 3 point every time, just about, if we don't get hit, so you don't continue on to the 2. Hope you enjoyed this. It doesn't take a scholar to figure this stuff out for themselves. You didn't need me to move the checkers around and to hit the button for you to see what's right and what's wrong. And it isn't brain surgery to figure out why one play is better than another. It's all about what are the odds on the next roll, the pluses and minuses. This is stuff you can do yourself. It's called deliberate practice to figure out what's right here. And believe me, you'll remember it better and you'll learn it better if you do it on your own instead of passively just watching and then forgetting about it after it's over. When you move the checkers yourself, hit the buttons yourself, you will understand it better. I posted a quote on the USBGF Facebook page not long ago that says you can't hire someone to practice for you. That's what this is. This is the kind of practice you need to do to learn what to do in these situations and in any situation. This is the way to go about it. Thanks for watching. Phil Simborg for the USBGF, and good rolling to everybody. Bye-bye.